The day I watched my father slap my sister across the face in front of 20 shareholders was the day I realised revenge isn't a dish best served cold. It's a dish best served with a side of bankruptcy papers and a garnish of federal securities violations. But let me tell you something. That moment watching Bella's perfectly applied foundation crack under the force of our father's palm, watching the IPO dreams of Sterling and Sons shatter like the coffee mug she'd knocked onto Mr. Hamilton's $8,000 suit, that wasn't even the most satisfying part of my day. The most satisfying part was walking away. Finally, gloriously, permanently walking away. If you're enjoying this story of corporate family drama and calculated revenge, please hit that like button, subscribe for more stories of people who finally stood up for themselves, and drop a comment telling me about the moment you realised you were done being someone's doormat. Now let me take you back to where this all started. 3 months earlier, I was still playing the role I'd been cast in since childhood. The fixer. The one who made things work. The invisible architect of every success that Bella took credit for, and every crisis that somehow became my fault. My name is Alex Sterling, and for 8 years I'd been the Chief Technology Officer of Sterling and Sons, the family empire my grandfather built from nothing. But let me be clear about something. I wasn't CTO because of my last name. I was CTO because I'd pulled all-nighters debugging code while Bella was posting Instagram stories from Ibiza. I was CTO because when our largest client's system crashed at 2 a.m, I was the one on the phone walking their IT team through recovery, while my father slept peacefully and Bella didn't even know we had a crisis. I'd graduated top of my class from MIT. I'd turned down offers from Google, from Apple, from every tech giant you can name because my father had looked me in the eye and said family comes first. Because he'd promised that loyalty would be rewarded. Because I was stupid enough to believe that blood meant something. The office was on the 42nd floor of a glass tower in downtown Manhattan. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, and enough tension to power the entire electrical grid. My office was at the end of the hall, as far from my father's corner suite as physically possible, while still being on the executive floor. Bella's office naturally was right next to his. Prime real estate for the golden child. It was a Tuesday morning when everything started to unravel, though I didn't know it yet. I was in my office reviewing code for Project Titan, our flagship product that was supposed to be the centerpiece of our IPO pitch. The IPO that was 3 months away. The IPO that would either make us all rich beyond measure or expose us as the dysfunctional mess we actually were. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, my lead developer. Emergency meeting in conference room A. Your father wants you there now. Bella called it. I felt that familiar tightening in my chest. When Bella called emergency meetings, it usually meant she'd promised something impossible to a client and expected me to figure out how to deliver it. I saved my work, grabbed my laptop, and headed down the hall. The conference room was already full. My father sat at the head of the table in his custom Tom Ford suit, silver hair perfectly styled, looking every inch the self-made billionaire he loved to portray himself as. Bella sat to his right, wearing a cream-coloured blazer that probably cost more than my car payment, her blonde hair falling in perfect waves over her shoulders. She was 28, 3 years younger than me, and had been hired as Chief Marketing Officer the day after she graduated from a state school with a degree in communications and a minor in manipulation. Around the table sat our senior team, and at the far end, the man who would change everything, Mr. Hamilton, Lawrence Hamilton III to be precise. 72 years old, self-made tech industry legend, worth somewhere north of $3 billion, and the anchor investor we needed to make our IPO successful. He sat perfectly still, his weathered hands folded on the table, his ice blue eyes missing nothing. I took my seat across from Bella. She didn't look at me. My father cleared his throat. Alex, good. We were just discussing an exciting opportunity that Bella has secured for us. I opened my laptop fingers, poised over the keyboard. What kind of opportunity? Bella leaned forward, her eyes bright with the kind of enthusiasm that always preceded disaster. Mr. Hamilton has agreed to anchor our IPO with a $200 million investment. I nodded slowly. That's excellent news. "There's more," she continued, and I heard the edge in her voice that told me the trap was already set. "He's also commissioning us to build a custom enterprise solution for his entire company network. It's exactly what we need to prove our scalability before going public." I looked at Mr. Hamilton. He was watching me with the expression of a man who'd built 4 separate billion-dollar companies and could smell bullshit from a mile away. "What's the scope?" I asked. Bella slid a folder across the table. "It's all in here. Full integration, custom security protocols, cloud migration for 17,000 endpoints, AI-driven analytics dashboard, the works." I opened the folder, scanned the first page, felt my blood pressure spike. This is a 6-month project, minimum, maybe 8 if we want to do it right. "That's the best part," Bella said, her smile widening. "I told Mr. Hamilton we could have it done in 2 weeks. The room went silent. Someone dropped a pen. I heard Marcus inhale sharply from his seat by the window. I looked up from the folder, certain I'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" 2 weeks, Bella repeated, still smiling. "We need to show momentum before the IPO roadshow. Mr. Hamilton needs it for his quarterly board meeting. It's perfect timing." I closed the folder very carefully. When I spoke, my voice was level, professional. "Bella, this isn't possible. The security protocols alone require 6 weeks of development and testing. The data migration requires careful planning. If we rush this, if we cut corners, we could expose Mr. Hamilton's entire network to catastrophic breaches. We could face federal investigations. This isn't about marketing timelines. This is about not going to prison." I watched her face change. The smile disappeared. Her eyes went hard. "Are you saying you can't do it?" "I'm saying no one can do it, not in 2 weeks, not safely, not legally." My father's hand came down on the table. Not quite a slam, but close enough. "Alex, we didn't ask for a lecture on what's impossible. We asked you to make it happen. That's what you do, isn't it? You make things work." I turned to him. "Dad, I make things work by not making promises we can't keep. If we commit to this timeline and fail, we don't just lose Hamilton's investment, we lose credibility with every other potential investor. The IPO dies." Bella stood up. I should have seen it coming, but I was too focused on the technical catastrophe she'd committed us to. Her voice cracked just slightly, just enough. "This is what you always do, isn't it? Whenever I accomplish something, whenever I bring in a big opportunity, you have to tear it down. You have to make everyone doubt me." "That's not what I'm doing," I said, but she was already in motion. "You've been jealous of me since the day I joined this company." Her eyes were glistening now, actual tears. I'd seen this performance before, but never on this grander stage. "I work so hard to bring in clients, to build relationships, to make this company shine, and all you do is sit in your office and criticize. You can't stand that I'm good at this. You can't stand that Dad sees my value." "Bella, stop. This isn't about you. This is about basic project management." She turned to Mr. Hamilton, and the tears spilled over. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Hamilton. My sister has always struggled with seeing the bigger picture. She's brilliant with code, truly, but she doesn't understand the business side. She doesn't understand that sometimes you have to take risks to achieve great things." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. She'd said sister, in front of Hamilton, in front of everyone. I'd been at this company for 8 years, and she was framing me as the difficult one who didn't understand business. Mr. Hamilton's expression hadn't changed. He was still watching, still evaluating. My father stood up. His face was red. "Alex, that's enough. Mr. Hamilton is our most important relationship, and you're sitting here trying to sabotage it because you're jealous that Bella is the one who cultivated it. This is exactly the kind of territorial behaviour that holds companies back." "I'm not being territorial, I'm being realistic about our capabilities." "You're being a problem." His voice rose. The vein in his temple was visible now. "You know what your problem is. You've never understood that this company is bigger than your ego. You've never understood that when someone brings in a deal this size, you figure out how to say yes. You make it work." I stood up, gathering my laptop. "I won't put my name on something that's going to fail and potentially expose us to legal liability. If you want to commit to this timeline, you'll have to do it without my sign-off." That's when my father's voice turned to ice. "Then get out." I stopped. "Excuse me." "You heard me. Get out of this meeting. Get out of this office. You're suspended without pay effective immediately until you're ready to come back here and apologise to your sister in front of this entire team for trying to undermine her." The room was frozen. Marcus was staring at his laptop. Our CFO was studying the table. No one was looking at me except Bella, and her expression was triumphant. "Dad, you can't be serious." "I'm dead serious. You're an embarrassment. You're a disgrace to this family and this company. Now get out of my sight." I looked at Mr. Hamilton one more time. His face was unreadable. Then I closed my laptop, tucked it under my arm, and walked toward the door. As I passed Bella's chair, she leaned in close. Her whisper was soft enough that only I could hear it. "Smart people know when to shut their mouths. I'm the future of this family, Alex. You're just the help." I stopped, looked down at her. And for the first time in 8 years, I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I didn't try to make her see reason. I just said one word. "All right." Then I walked out. The elevator ride down 42 floors was the longest of my life. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage, from 8 years of swallowed words and buried resentment finally breaking through the surface. When I reached the parking garage, I sat in my car for 20 minutes, hands on the steering wheel, breathing. Just breathing. Then I started making phone calls. The first call was to Janet Rodriguez, the attorney I'd kept on retainer for 3 years. Corporate law specialist, former federal prosecutor, and a woman with exactly 0 tolerance for bullshit. She answered on the second ring. "Alex Sterling, I was wondering when you'd call." "You knew this was coming." "Honey, I've been reviewing your employment contract for 2 years, watching you send me those risk assessment emails about your sister's decisions. I've been waiting for the day you got tired of being the adult in a room full of children. What happened?" I told her. Everything. The impossible deadline, the public humiliation, Bella's whispered threat. When I finished, Janet was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Do you still have access to your email?" "They haven't cut me off yet. I'm still logged in on my phone." "Download everything, every email, every report, every risk assessment you've ever filed, every budget document, every project timeline. Do it now before they think to lock you out." "Janet, that's company property. That's your work product, and you have a legal right to defend yourself against wrongful termination, which is where this is headed. Download it. All of it. Then we're going to talk about a few things, starting with the fact that your employment contract gives you intellectual property rights to any code you developed before you joined Sterling & Sons. And if memory serves, you brought quite a bit of proprietary framework with you when you started. I sat up straighter. The Aurora framework. It's the foundation for everything we've built. Dad's lawyers wrote it off as a non-issue because I was family. Family until you're not. Download everything, Alex. Then come to my office. We have work to do. The second call was to David Chen, a headhunter I'd met at a tech conference 2 years ago. He'd been trying to recruit me ever since, calling every few months with offers I always turned down out of some misguided sense of family loyalty. "David, it's Alex Sterling." There was a pause, then carefully, "Alex, this is unexpected. How can I help you? You still have clients looking for a CTO with enterprise architecture experience." I could hear the smile in his voice. "I have 3 companies that would fight each other in a parking lot for a chance to interview you. What changed?" "Let's just say my availability status just updated." "Say no more. I'll have a list of opportunities on your desk by tomorrow morning. Premium positions only. These companies have been waiting for you." The third call I made to myself. I pulled up my personal cloud storage and started uploading files. My risk assessment logs, the detailed records I'd kept of every questionable decision, every corner Bella had cut, every budget discrepancy I'd flagged and been told to ignore. 8 years of receipts. I'd started keeping these records 3 years ago after Bella had blamed a security breach on my team, when it had actually been caused by her decision to override our access protocols because they were too much hassle for her assistant. I'd learnt then that in a family business, when something goes wrong, blood protects blood. And I was the expendable one. By the time I got home to my apartment in Brooklyn, my phone was blowing up. Texts from Marcus and the other developers asking what happened, offering support. A few carefully worded messages from other executives who'd witnessed my humiliation and were clearly trying to figure out which way the wind was blowing. And one call from my father. I let it go to voicemail, listened to it once. "Alex, you need to stop being childish about this. Bella is crying. She's convinced you hate her. This is exactly the kind of drama we can't afford right now. You're going to come back tomorrow morning, you're going to apologise to her in front of the team, and then you're going to make her timeline work. This is not negotiable. If you don't, I'll cut you out of your inheritance. I mean it. Family comes first, and right now you're not acting like family." I deleted the voicemail, poured myself a glass of scotch, and started planning. The thing about being the person who actually runs the company is that you know where all the bodies are buried. You know which systems are held together with duct tape and prayer. You know which clients are one bad quarter away from leaving. You know exactly how precarious everything really is beneath the shiny surface. And you know exactly what will happen when the person who's been holding it all together walks away. That night I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop going through 8 years of files. I built a timeline, a comprehensive, footnoted, cross-referenced timeline of every promise Bella had made that I'd had to break my back to deliver on. Every budget she'd blown on luxury client dinners and influencer marketing campaigns that generated zero ROI. Every security protocol she'd bypassed because compliance was boring. And I found something interesting in the financial records. Very interesting. Bella had been expensing personal purchases as business development. A $50,000 ski trip to Aspen, billed as a client retreat, except the only client who attended was a friend from college who worked in a completely unrelated industry. A company credit card charged at Cartier for a watch she wore in her Instagram photos. First-class flights to Fashion Week in Paris categorized as marketing research. It wasn't technically embezzlement, it was creative accounting, the kind of thing that raises eyebrows during an IPO audit, the kind of thing that makes investors nervous. At 3 a.m, my phone rang, my father again. This time I answered. Dad! Alex, thank God, listen, we need you to come back. The developers are saying Project Titan is hitting roadblocks. They need your expertise to troubleshoot. I'm suspended without pay. Remember you told me not to come back until I apologised. Yes, well, we can work around that. Come in tomorrow morning early before the team arrives. You can work on the technical side quietly. We don't need to make a big production of it. I took a sip of now warm scotch. So let me make sure I understand. You want me to come in and fix Bella's impossible timeline, but I'm still suspended, still unpaid, still officially in disgrace. Alex, don't be difficult. This is about the family, the company. Right, the company. The IPO, the 200 million from Hamilton. Tell me, Dad, what happens if I don't come in? Silence, then quietly, we both know what happens. Say it. The project fails, we lose Hamilton, the IPO probably dies. And you need me to prevent that? Yes. But you also need Bella to think she's the hero of this story. You need her to be the one who saved the day, while I do the actual work in the background like I always do. That's not fair, Alex. Bella has real value to this company. She brings in relationships. She has vision. She has vision, I have skill, and you've always valued her vision more than my skill, haven't you? Because vision makes for good press releases and TED Talks. Skill is just the boring work that happens in the background. Where is this coming from? This isn't like you. I laughed, it came out bitter. This is exactly like me, Dad. This is who I've always been. You've just never bothered to pay attention. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to come in tomorrow morning, not to fix Bella's mess, to resign. You can't resign. We're 3 months from the IPO. Watch me. If you do this, you're out. Completely out. No inheritance, no severance, nothing. I'll make sure every company in this industry knows you walked away from your family in their moment of need. Okay, I said, and hung up. At 6 the next morning, I got dressed in my best suit, navy Tom Ford, the one I'd bought for client presentations with my own money because I'd learnt early that in my father's company you invested in yourself because no one else would. I did my makeup carefully, confidence war paint. Then I drove into Manhattan. The office was quiet when I arrived. Security waved me through. They hadn't been told to revoke my access yet. I rode the elevator up to 42, walked past my office without stopping, and went straight to the executive conference room. The board of directors meeting was scheduled for 9. I knew this because I'd been copied on the calendar invite before being suspended. It was the final pre-IPO strategy session. Everyone would be there. The board, the investors, Mr. Hamilton. I set up my laptop at the far end of the conference table, opened my presentation, and waited. At 8:45 people started arriving. My father was first deep in conversation with our CFO. He saw me and stopped dead. Alex, what are you doing here? Good morning, Dad. I am here for the board meeting. You're suspended. You can't be at this meeting. Actually, according to my employment contract as CTO, I have a standing right to attend any board meeting where technical matters are being discussed. And since Project Titan is the centerpiece of today's agenda, I'm well within my rights. Our general counsel, Peter Morrison, had arrived during this exchange. He flipped through his phone, scanning what I assumed was my contract. She's right, John. Her contract explicitly grants her board meeting access for technical discussions. My father's face was turning red, but before he could respond, other board members started filing in. Then Bella arrived, and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. She looked perfect as always. Cream-coloured dress, pearl earrings, hair in a sophisticated updo. When she saw me, her eyes went wide, then narrow. "What is she doing here?" "Company business," I said pleasantly. "Please have a seat. We have a lot to discuss." Mr. Hamilton was the last to arrive at exactly 9 o'clock. He took his seat at the middle of the table, nodded to the room, and waited. My father called the meeting to order. His voice was tight. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. We have a very exciting agenda today, focusing on our IPO timeline and the strategic partnership with Hamilton Industries. Bella, why don't you start us off with a progress report on Project Titan?" Bella stood clicking to her first slide. It was all smoke and mirrors, beautiful graphics, aspirational language, zero substance. She talked about stakeholder engagement and synergistic opportunities and transformative solutions. She did not mention that the actual project was dead in the water because every competent developer on the team had told her it was impossible. When she finished, there was polite applause. Then my father turned to the board. "As you can see, we're making excellent progress. Bella has done an outstanding job cultivating this relationship and positioning us for success." I raised my hand. My father ignored me. I stood up anyway. "I have some additional materials the board should review before we proceed." Bella's voice was sharp. "Alex, this isn't the time. You're not even supposed to be here." "Actually, I am, and what I have to share is directly relevant to the board's fiduciary duty to shareholders." I looked at Mr. Hamilton. He was watching me with those ice blue eyes, expression neutral. "Mr. Hamilton, may I ask you a question?" He inclined his head slightly. "Proceed." "When you agreed to invest $200 million in Sterling & Sons, and when you commissioned Project Titan, what assurances were you given about our technical capabilities and our track record of on-time delivery?" Bella shot to her feet. "This is completely inappropriate. Alex, sit down." "Answer the question, Bella. What did you tell Mr. Hamilton about our capabilities?" Mr. Hamilton spoke before she could. His voice was calm, measured. "I was told that Sterling & Sons had a perfect track record of meeting aggressive deadlines. I was told that your technical team was the best in the industry. I was told that Project Titan would be completed in 2 weeks, thoroughly tested and ready for deployment at my quarterly board meeting." I nodded. "And did anyone mention to you that a project of this scope typically requires 6 months minimum, that the security protocols alone require extensive development and testing, that cutting corners on enterprise security could expose your company to massive liability?" "And say, Alex, that's enough." My father was standing now. "You're out of line. Mr. Hamilton, please forgive my daughter. She's been going through some personal issues." "I'm going through a crisis of conscience, actually." I opened my laptop connected to the conference room display. "Mr. Hamilton, board members, I have here a comprehensive analysis of Project Titan's requirements versus our actual capabilities. May I walk you through it?" Bella was moving toward me now. "Do not touch that laptop. Dad calls security." But I was already clicking through slides. The first one showed the detailed project scope I'd mapped out. 17,000 endpoints. Custom security architecture. Data migration from legacy systems. AI integration. Real timelines for each component backed by industry standard estimates. "This is a 40-week project," I said, "minimum. If we push a team to do it in 2 weeks, we're not delivering a premium product. We're delivering a disaster waiting to happen." The second slide showed Project Titan's budget, Bella's projected budget, and next to it the actual cost estimates from our developers. "The budget Miss Sterling proposed is underfunded by approximately $4 million. Where was that money supposed to come from?" The third slide was where things got interesting. It was a detailed breakdown of Bella's expense reports over the past 18 months. Every luxury purchase, every personal trip billed as business development, every questionable charge. "This is a violation of my privacy." Bella lunged for the laptop. I stepped aside smoothly and she stumbled her hand, catching the edge of the conference table. The carafe of coffee sitting there tipped, tumbled and dumped dark liquid directly into Mr. Hamilton's lap. He stood slowly, coffee dripping from his pants, and the room went silent. Bella was stammering apologies, reaching for napkins, but Hamilton waved her away. He was looking at the screen, at the evidence of her financial impropriety displayed for everyone to see. "Miss Sterling," he said quietly, "is this accurate?" "It's taken out of context," she said desperately. "Those were legitimate business expenses. Alex is trying to sabotage me because she's always been jealous." "I see." He turned to my father. "Mr. Sterling, were you aware of these expenditures?" My father looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. Some of them. Bella has discretion over her marketing budget. It's a complex area." "It's fraud," said one of the board members, a woman named Carol Chen, who'd made her fortune in private equity. "Or very close to it. This is exactly the kind of thing that comes out during IPO due diligence and tanks the whole offering." I advanced to the next slide. "There's more. This is a summary of every project over the past 3 years where Miss Sterling promised aggressive timelines that the technical team then had to kill themselves to meet. In 4 cases, we succeeded. In 6 cases, we delivered substandard work that required extensive post-launch fixes. In 3 cases, we failed entirely and had to refund client money. And those failures weren't my fault," Bella said. Her voice was rising. "The tech team didn't execute. Alex didn't support me." "The tech team performed miracles," I said. "We worked 100-hour weeks to try to make your impossible promises come true." And I documented every single one. Another slide. Email after email of me raising concerns, being overruled, being told to just make it work. I have 3 years of risk assessments that were ignored. 3 years of warnings about exactly this scenario. My father found his voice. "Alex, whatever point you're trying to make, you've made it. Now sit down before you do permanent damage to this company." "The damage is already done, Dad. I'm just making sure everyone sees it clearly before they invest hundreds of millions of dollars in a company run by people who value charm over competence." I pulled out a document from my bag, my resignation letter. I'd printed it on company letterhead that morning, signed it, dated it. "I'm resigning effective immediately. I'm also activating the whistleblower protection clause in my contract, which means I'm formally reporting financial irregularities and potential securities fraud to the appropriate authorities. And I'm invoking the intellectual property clause in my employment agreement." Peter Morrison, the general counsel, had gone pale. "What intellectual property clause?" "The one in my original contract 8 years ago. The one that your predecessors apparently didn't read carefully. The Aurora framework, the foundational architecture that powers every product Sterling & Sons has built, was developed by me before I joined this company. I licensed it to Sterling & Sons as part of my employment agreement. That license terminates upon my resignation." The room erupted, board members talking over each other, my father shouting, Bella crying real tears this time. The conference room door opened. A woman in a grey suit stepped in. "Mr. Sterling, I'm Jennifer Walsh from Morrison, Chang & Associates. I'm representing Miss Sterling in this matter." It was Janet, right on time. She set a briefcase on the table, pulled out documents. "As of 8 a.m. this morning, my client has formally terminated her employment with Sterling & Sons. As per Section 7.3 of her employment contract, all intellectual property she brought to the company reverts to her ownership. We've prepared a licensing agreement if Sterling & Sons wishes to continue using the Aurora framework, but the terms are substantially different from the previous arrangement." "You can't do this," my father said. His voice was barely controlled. "We're weeks from an IPO. You'll destroy everything." "You destroyed it," I said, "when you chose to humiliate me in front of our most important investor because I told you the truth. When you let Bella build a house of cards and expected me to keep it standing. When you made it clear that I was valuable only as long as I was useful and invisible." Mr. Hamilton stood. Coffee still stained his pants, but his voice was steady. "Mr. Sterling, Miss Sterling, I'm withdrawing my investment, effective immediately. I don't do business with organisations that have this level of internal dysfunction and questionable ethics." He looked at me. "Miss Sterling, my card. I think you and I should have a conversation about what you're planning to do next." He placed his card on the table in front of me, nodded to the room and walked out. The next person to leave was Carol Chen, already on her phone, probably calling her lawyers. Then 2 more board members. The room was emptying. My father just stood there watching his dreams circle the drain. Then he turned to Bella and I saw something I'd never seen before. Rage, pure undiluted rage. Pure... "You stupid girl," he said. "You've destroyed us." And he hit her, an open palm across the face, hard enough that her head snapped to the side. I should have felt satisfaction, some vindication. Instead, I just felt tired. I picked up my laptop, my resignation letter and Mr. Hamilton's card. Janet held the door for me. "Alex, wait." My father was following me. We reached the elevator bank. He grabbed my arm. "Please, you can't leave. Not like this. We can fix this. I'll fire Bella. I'll make you CEO. Whatever you want. Just please, we need you." I looked at his hand on my arm. He let go. "You don't need me, Dad. You need a miracle. And I'm an engineer, not God." The elevator doors opened. I stepped in. Janet followed. "Alex, you're my daughter." "No," I said as the doors started to close. "I was your employee." And I quit. The next 6 months were a blur. Sterling and Sons tried to continue without the Aurora framework. They hired new developers, tried to reverse engineer my code, even threatened legal action. Janet shut that down hard with documentation that proved the IP was mine. Without Hamilton's anchor investment, the IPO collapsed. Other investors pulled out. Clients started jumping ship when they realised the technical foundation of all their products was now in legal limbo. The SEC opened an investigation into Bella's expense account and found irregularities that qualified as securities fraud. She was indicted. My father tried to protect her used company funds to pay for her lawyers. The board forced him out. Sterling and Sons was acquired in a fire sale by a private equity firm for a fraction of its previous valuation. The new owners gutted it, sold off the assets, laid off most of the staff. 2 months later, my father had a stroke. He ended up in a Connecticut nursing home. Bella was too busy with her legal troubles to visit. I didn't visit either. I took a month to breathe. Then I called Mr. Hamilton. We met at his office overlooking Central Park. He wanted to build a tech consultancy to help companies avoid disasters like Sterling and Sons. He had the money and connections. I had the expertise and battle scars. We shook hands over green tea. 6 months later, I was on the Forbes cover. The Phoenix CTO, How Alex Sterling Built a Unicorn from the Ashes of Family Dysfunction. The photo was in our new office's glass and steel, my view making my old office look like a broom closet. The day the article came out, my phone rang. My father. "Alex, I saw the Forbes article. I'm proud of you." "No, you're not. You need something." Silence. "Then she's your sister." "She was my rival. You made sure of that." "I made mistakes. If I could go back." "But you can't. Choices have consequences, Dad. You chose to reward appearance over substance. You chose to punish honesty. Those were your choices. So you'll just let me rot, let your sister go to prison. I'm going to let you experience the natural consequences of your decisions. Just like you let me experience mine every time I told the truth. Goodbye, Dad." I hung up and pressed block. My assistant knocked. "Ms. Sterling, your 3 o'clock is here." I straightened my jacket. "Send them in." This is what freedom looks like. Not revenge, though that was satisfying. Freedom is building something that's yours, surrounded by people who value you. Freedom is blocking a number and feeling nothing but relief. You don't owe loyalty to people who never valued yours. Family should lift you up, not tear you down. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away and build something better. So here's my question. Have you ever had that moment where you realised you were done? When you saw a relationship for what it really was? When you understood that staying was costing more than leaving? What did you do? Did you walk away, or are you still there hoping things will change? Drop your story in the comments. Hit like if this resonated. Subscribe because these stories remind people you're not stuck, you're not powerless. And sometimes the best revenge is building a life so good you forget why you wanted revenge. Remember, you can't change people who don't see an issue with their actions. You can only change how much power you give them. Choose yourself, choose your peace, choose your future. Because the best apology is becoming someone who never needs one from them again.